Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. You ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right.
Awesome.
Recording live from the Capri Campers mobile podcast studio and community development center. This is the Small Truck Campers podcast, where we aim to build community, share inspiration, and encourage others. We've got a lot of great things to cover on this episode, so why don't you grab your favorite campfire beverage and let's hit the road. Hey guys, welcome to the Small Truck Campers podcast. I'm so thrilled to be bringing this episode, and we'll get to that here in 1 second. But before we get into that conversation, I do want to give a quick shout out to the supporters of this community that make this podcast possible. First up is Afuera Coffee. Do good, go Afuera. Single origin coffee, organic, Rainforest Alliance certified, and they give 5% back of all sales, not even profits or revenues. They give 5% back of all sales to a charity that is out there protecting the environment. And I had a hard time. I went to the grocery store recently. I could not find a coffee that met all of this criteria, but Afuera Coffee, they are doing just that. This is delicious coffee, and what a better way to start your adventures than with a nice cup of Afuera coffee. Like I said, Rainforest Alliance certified, single origin, from farms in El Salvador. This stuff is delicious. If you want to treat yourself to a nice cup of joe in the morning, check out Afuera Coffee. I'll link them below, and you can use code SmallTruckCampers to get 10% off your next purchase from Afuera Coffee. They're a small company, and we love to support them because they support us. Next up is Torquelift International. Torquelift makes the best camper accessory products. They make the best way to tie down your camper to your truck using their frame-mounted tie-downs. They make scissor steps to get in and out of the camper, and they make a lot more accessories. Their most recent product is called the Apex Anchors, and when you have like a camper like a four-wheel, you usually have to drill into your truck bed and attach these eye bolts that have a steel plate backing. Well, Torquelift took that idea and made eye bolts that essentially pop down when you're not using them, and they're flush with the truck bed. Then when you want to use them, you pop them up and they're attached to the frame. And aside from being made in America, having great customer service, and making the best products out there, they are looking for people to help evaluate this latest product, the Apex Anchors. So if you're interested and you want to get involved and be a product evaluator for Torquelift, shoot them an email, marketing@torquelift.com, and you want to make that to Jasmine, Jasmyne. Send her an email saying you're interested, show her your setup with your camper and your truck bed, see if you can get on that evaluator program. They want to hook you guys up with some Apex Anchors and in return get some feedback from out in the community. But like I say, great customer service. And if you're looking for the best way to attach your truck camper to your truck, I'd go with Torquelift International. Do it right once. Don't drill a billion holes in your truck bed like I did. So check out Torquelift International, link below. Shoot them an email, marketing@torquelift.com. And lastly, Capri Campers, thank you guys so much. I'm recording the mobile podcast studio right now. It is awesome. I love this camper. It's beautiful. It inspires. So if you're interested in Capri, you want to learn more, check out episode 24, where I interview the owners of Capri Camper. And if you hop on the YouTube channel, you'll see a video walkthrough I did of their tour of how they're exactly made. Really great stuff made in the heart of Texas by an awesome group of small people. They're putting out some really good product. It's built to last, so check them out. And with the thank yous out of the way, let's get to this awesome conversation. So I'm sitting down here with Piet coming all the way from South Africa. Currently living in California, but we're out here in Hawaii visiting on a family trip here. And it got me thinking about his business, Renedian Motorcycle Tours, which is adventure bike tours through Africa and I think beyond, right?
Yeah, we're actually on 6 continents. So we started off in Africa, or my partner who founded the business started off in Africa in 2009. And then the second place that we started running tours was in Mongolia. And that's actually where I met him, who went on the first tour with him. And since then, we've expanded to South America, where we've got 4 countries that we travel through, 3 countries that we travel through, New Zealand, Scotland, Canada, where we're a Canadian-based company. And I just came back in April from Japan, where we started a new tour there, which was absolutely completely. I've never been there, and it completely exceeded my expectations. Not so much from the cultural point of view, but also the riding from a motorcycle perspective. Even though all paved, I like to do gravel riding most of the time, but it just blew my mind away. So yeah, so we're in six different on 6 continents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a adventure bike company. So why don't you just explain, like, in a nutshell, what you guys do for these tours, like what it's all about?
Right. So in essence, someone gives us a bunch of money, and then we provide a full turnkey tour. Our philosophy is we're a fully guided, all-inclusive, and fully supported tour. Basically, what that means is with every tour, you will have someone who's leading the group, and all-inclusive means in our case, once you step off the plane, we provide the transfer from that plane to the first hotel, and then all the bikes, accommodation, most activities on and off the bike, would be included. So we've structured the tours basically that you don't really have to spend for a lot of money once once you're on tour with us, and until the end of the tour, we put you back on the plane and off you go. And we try and do this in really exotic places. So my partner, Rene Cormier, he's a Canadian guy, and he was a corporate marketing dude with a mountain bike company. He's a Canadian guy, but he worked for Rock Jocks.
Oh, yeah.
I think they were based in Colorado at the time. So this was early 2000s, and he got tired of corporate life. So he saw somewhere someone riding a motorcycle. He never had a bike up until that time through Africa, and long story short, he ended up buying a bike, and he rode around the world for 4.5 years. And then he wrote a book about it called The University of Gravel Road. So became a little bit famous with that, and he started, when he was done with the tour, he started selling the book at bike shows in Canada, because he's a Canadian guy. And that's how he got into the industry. And then he got married to a South African girl from Cape Town, and decided that want to go back to corporate life, but he's got to do something to earn some money. So the first tour that they did was in 2009 from Cape Town to Windhoek, which is capital of Namibia in southern Africa.
Cape Town to Namibia.
Namibia, correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's about a 1,500 kilometer tour, and I think they did about 2 weeks for that one. That's when the company started. The name Renedian, when he started the company, he was reminded, they were sitting, when he was still with Rock Jocks, they were sitting around the table, and the Canadians got a distinct accent from you guys.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So they were talking, and his one friend said, "Oh, there he goes off in his Renedian," being Rene's name and being Canadian, so Rene the Canadian. And he thought, well, that's quite a cool name. And then, fast forward 5 years, that's where he called the company.
Wow.
Where he got the name for the company. So yeah, so that's 2009, and I joined him in 2017.
Okay.
2018. Yeah.
So that's what you guys are doing now, is these all-inclusive adventure bike tours through South Africa, Mongolia, South America, and now Japan, New Zealand, and a bunch of other countries.
Yeah.
And we'll get into more about some adventures you had with all those adventures. But let's backtrack a little bit. Where did you grow up, and what kind of got you into motorcycle riding in the first place?
I was born in Cape Town, and then my folks moved when I was 6 months old to the Free State province. So if you're familiar at all with South Africa, it's sort of the Kansas equivalent of the US.
Okay.
Where it's the majority of the province is flat. So there's a direct comparison with Kansas, and they also grow a lot of grain there, which is another direct comparison. So I grew up there. We lived in a very small town at the time. This was early 70s, but I was born in 74, so we moved there in 75, I think, and I grew up there. And then went to university in Stellenbosch, which is back in Cape Town.
Okay.
So that's where I'm from. It's the middle, small town country boy. And then to get to your question, when I started riding, a lot of my friends were on a farm, and the first contact I had with the motorcycle was an old XT500 Yamaha Scrambler. So that bike I think came out in the 1980s, and that was sort of well, in my opinion, one of the grandfathers of adventure biking. Right?
Okay.
So the first dual sport bike, meaning you can ride with it on road, off road, and it's to this day it's a classic. I'm still looking for one to sort of restore it and things.
The Scrambler.
The Scrambler, the XT500. But when I was 5-6 years old, that thing was way too tall, so I had to put it on the side stand and had a kickstart. So I managed to do that, and then started riding. So that's where I started riding, and where I got a love for gravel riding. I don't know anything about, or a lot about paved riding bikes.
Yeah.
And don't ask me about these crotch rockets and things. I don't know much about that.
Sure.
A little bit about scramblers and adventure bikes, and that's where my interest and love is, and that's sort of where our business is focused on as well. On dual sport or adventure riding.
Got it. So growing up, South Africa, like you said, born in Cape Town, moved away to the Free State, came back to Cape Town. What is the riding like there? Like grow up, like when you got access to bikes, like, cause I mean, in my mind, you can just kind of go off as far as you want. What was it?
Yeah,
like?
so in South Africa, that's pretty much the case. And I never had money to buy one because my folks never wanted to buy me a bike. It's too dangerous, you're gonna die. That kind of thing, which I get.
Yeah.
And I actually only managed to buy my own bike once I started working after university. So quite late in life, I got back on. I rode a lot, but never had my own bike. So Cape Town, the Western Cape, is absolutely, I think, one of the adventure riding havens or in this world. There's I know the place very well because that's what I used to do on a weekend basis. When I could stop working and support the addiction of riding. There's just so many undiscovered little places in and around the Western Cape of a varied difference in terms of what you can expect from mountain scenery down to desert and lush green rainforests, all in 5, 6, 7 hours out of Cape Town. Well, no, you don't even have to go that far.
Wow.
2 hours would be. So yeah, Cape Town is and the Western Cape is so I can talk your ears off about all the different places, but there's just so many amazing places to ride. I really miss the place because I live in California now, but I do get to go back a lot. And a lot of our tours, we changed the itineraries once I got involved to some of these places that we knew about, but that the general public didn't, may not know about if you would Google it or so. So we've got that personal touch, I think, in a lot of our itineraries where we manage to incorporate places that I like personally.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I bet growing up there and just knowing the local landscape, there's got to be a ton of hidden gems.
For sure.
I'm sure if you Google it, like, things to do in South Africa, it's like the big ones like Table Rock or like downtown Cape Town, but all those little villages along the way, I'm sure just maybe trapped in time too.
For sure. And then the sad thing is, the government in some of those places aren't doing a really good job. So there's a bit of a decline in some of the smaller villages, which is really trapped in time. But it's an amazing place to discover. I think with the onset of internet, obviously there's a lot more out there than what the case would have been 5-10 years ago. But it's still a really an off the beaten track place that you can visit. I once did it. My wife was working over New Year's one year, and I just took my bike and met up with some friends in the Karoo, which is maybe about 800 kilometers from Cape Town. But I decided to take an off the beaten track dirt road and do this over 2 or 3 days. And there was a section, I think it was about 500 kilometers, so it's about 300 miles, with 2 towns in that section. And this was done on the 31st of December, so just before New Year's. And outside of those 2 little towns, I did not see a single person.
Wow.
For 2 days. And this is literally just, if you look at the map, it's about 60 miles north of the N1, which is the main highway between Cape Town and Joburg. So there's a lot of traffic on that. But if you just go a little bit off the beaten track, did not see a single soul outside of a town for 2 days. Now what you do is we've got a little tent on the back, and well, the weather is so good there, you probably didn't even use the tent. So my sleeping bag, and this is quite an arid area, so you'll be riding along, you'll see a dry riverbed, and you just pull off under a tree and have a little fire, and all by yourself. Amazing.
Wow.
That's sort of the thing that I live for in a personal ride, but obviously with our tours, we will be staying in nice up
Nicer
close lodges.
accommodations.
Yeah. So not so much that rough and tough.
Yeah, that's incredible. Talk to me a little bit about your adventures with this Defender you bought in the UK, I think, and drove it down south.
So after university, I went to the UK with what a lot of South Africans did at the time, because we could get a working holiday visa and we were allowed legally to work in the UK. And we're a British colony, so there's lots of routes, from the UK. So I went across there with a bunch of friends, and we always had this dream or idea to drive down all the way from London back to Cape Town, because that was sort of the route to do. And as things happened, the market crashed and we couldn't find jobs in our fields that we studied for. So we had to
What year was this about?
This was, so I finished 98, so this must be 99, 2000.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was 99, 2000. And towards the end of 2000, because we had a 2-year visa, myself and two guys bought it was the pre-runner, I would say, to the Defender, the Series 3.
Okay.
So this was in 1970, early 70s, 71, 72 Series 3. With a 2.25 petrol engine. So that thing probably put out negative kilowatts, it was really, really bad. And we paid £700 at the time for it. So we didn't have money, but we decided we're going to do this and it's fun, so our total camping rig was stuff that we got. We decided we're not going to buy anything for this. So if we want a camping chair, we'll find a chair somewhere. It might not have been a little table or anything. So we kitted out the thing as cheaply as we could. Luckily, one of the guys is a mechanical engineer, so he knew a lot about mechanics. And then we took the ferry across to Calais from the UK, and then drove through France, spent some time in Bordeaux in the wine section.
Yep.
Stellenbosch, where I grew up, was
It's a wine area.
a wine
right?
area.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about wine, and still don't know anything about it, but I know I like wine.
Yeah.
After 5 years there, so we definitely drank a lot of wine on the way down to Spain. The Land Rover caught fire at one point. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and the next moment there's just flames in here, and I think someone forgot an old oil rag somewhere inside the engine compartment. Luckily, so this was a week into the tour, so luckily we were able to put out that fire without too much damage. Anyway, so we went down to Spain, hop on the ferry from Gibraltar across to the Spanish enclave of Ceuta, I'm not sure that's right on the tip of Morocco.
Wow.
And then we spent probably about three weeks riding through Morocco. Amazing, that place is so. For me, Africa is more the experience that you'll get around the equator and south of the equator, and North Africa is completely different to South or Southern Africa. It's completely different cultures, and it's more like the Mid East for me, the North Africa. So it's a distinct. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just saying it's completely different.
Yes.
So Morocco was amazing. The Atlas Mountains, which has got the second highest peak after Kilimanjaro, I think it's called Mount Jebel Toubkal. That is close to a place called Ouarzazate, and we took that 2.25 Defender Land Rover up there. It actually, I don't know how it got up there, because I struggle. That's where I realized I'm prone to altitude sickness, because my two friends had to sort of pull me up to climb this.
Oh, wow.
We did climb the peak, and it wasn't a technical climb. We just had to go up there. So then at that point, it was just a short while after Western Sahara, which is sort of, if you look at the map, is the section between Morocco and Mauritania, right on the Atlantic coast. That was incorporated with Morocco, but there were a lot of separatists still in the time, so it's a little bit politically unstable. And the way to get out of Morocco into Mauritania south was only one way. You had to congregate in a little town called Dakhla, which is the southernmost town in Western Sahara, which is now part of Morocco. And then you had to wait for enough people to congregate, and then the Moroccan military would run a convoy down to Mauritania, because they had to protect you from. I think it was just a bunch of show, because there was nothing much going on at the time.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, you spend a day with these guys or 2 days in convoy, with a clapped out jeep with a gun or something on the front, and maybe two guys to the back, and this is the military convoy. And then when you get to the border or somewhere, because there's no border there, it's in the middle of the Sahara, and it's just dunes and stuff, there's a little sign that says, careful mines. And then you have to wait for enough people to congregate, and then the Moroccan military would run a convoy down to Mauritania, because they had to protect you from. I think it was just a bunch of show, because there was nothing much going on at the time.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, landmines and stuff. And then that's where these guys drop you off and say, okay, you're now somewhere in Mauritania, you got to figure yourself out, and we're not going in here, but we've dropped you off. So we quickly figured out the best way to do this was to make sure that we're not first but second, with someone riding in front of us.
Yeah.
And luckily nothing happened because a lot of people has done that before. So also what was quite funny, there were probably 20 Peugeot 505s or 405s, the station wagon with 3 seats, the old cars. And so all the Frenchies bought those things up in France, really cheap, and then they drove it down to Senegal, which used to be a French colony, and they would sell it there at a big price to sponsor their trip and then have enough money to fly back. So that was a fun thing. Anyway, so we ran out of money sort of in Bamako in Mali, the capital of Mali, and money and time. And then we decided, well, let's sell this thing. And I think we sold it for 3 times as what we paid for it after it broke so many times. One point, this was still in Mali, the chassis gave in because it was rusted through. So this mechanical friend of mine, we only had a Leatherman, and I remember to this day, I had to go and he gave me the specifications of a piece of wood that would fit into this section where the chassis just rotted through, So we had to go and saw this thing down with the Leatherman. It was really a cool adventure,
Sure.
that we didn't plan for anything. And we fixed this thing with some wire, and, like thick wire with this piece of wood. And from there on was fine. It was all good fun.
Is it true? I heard the rumor that like you can essentially build a Land Rover, the old ones, with like a Leatherman, or they're designed to be taken apart and put back together with every tool that's on a Leatherman.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not that that's something I would want to do.
Sure.
But those things are really basic, and even for someone like myself who's not mechanically that inclined, it's actually an easy fix. It was designed, I think, in the 50s as an agricultural implement, and it's to this day it probably still is.
Yeah.
But you've either got a love or hate relationship with the thing, especially in South Africa where it's very popular. And I mean, I'll always hold. I think I had 3 of these. A Defender at one point, or not a Defender, a Discovery. No, Defender at one point, and I think the new ones are really good. But the older ones, it's like you had to have a special place in your heart for them to own one.
Yeah.
And they're still very popular in South Africa. And they become icons in the US, I see now, where people would buy up the old ones and have them restored, like the FJ Cruiser. So similar kind of thing. But they're beautiful.
Yeah, I think I've seen a few lately, like the 4 doors with the back seats, the bench seats that fold inward.
Yes.
Pretty sweet.
Those bench seats are really uncomfortable sitting.
Yeah.
Being a guy like myself, not going to fit in there.
Yeah, I bet. But gets the job done, right?
For sure.
So that was early 2000s. You go on this grand adventure. Let's fast forward a little bit to how did you hear about Renedian? And like, were you doing some adventure bike exploration at the time, or like how did that relationship kind of come about?
Right. So I like I said, I was working in Cape Town, and as a weekend warrior adventure rider, that was the only time I had because they had the day job during the week, and I was very much involved in the industry at the time, just as a competitor, not a competitor, someone who took part as a rider, So
Like
we were
enthusiast.
Enthusiast, that's the word, yeah. And was on an online forum there and did a few spectacular trips with friends or by myself. I like riding by myself. So nothing more than that, nothing professionally or anything. And then we had the opportunity to move from Cape Town to Los Angeles, where my wife was got a job and my one sister lived there. So we decided eventually to move to Los Angeles. And I decided I want to get out of corporate and do something different, And I had a friend in South Africa, also a motorcycle rider that I met in the industry, and he put me in touch with Rene because he knew Rene was looking to sort of expand his business a little bit, looking for someone. And I just said, well, this is a good opportunity because I'm trying to do my own thing, and maybe there's a business opportunity for me here. So I went up and flew up into Canada. He's based in British Columbia, a few hours east of Vancouver, where our head office is, And I saw him there. We immediately hit it off. We think a lot similar about important things. We think a lot different about other things, which is good. You know,
Yeah.
we both bring strengths to the business. And he said, well, why don't you come and join me in Mongolia? And I said, why not? So I jumped on the plane, and that was 2017, and did the first ride. So I think he kicked some tires on my side, and I kicked some tires on his side, and we decided, well, this is a good match. So
So what was that ride like through Mongolia? Where'd you
to
guys?
this day, Mongolia remains my favorite ride.
Okay.
Because the difference with Mongolia to all the other places that we stay at is land ownership in Mongolia is still to this day rests with the government, and it's the least populated place in the world. You know, per capita, it's a massive country. It's only got Russia to the north and China to the south, and the Mongolian people are so friendly. You know, it got put on the map with. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show The Long Way Around that Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman did.
Yep.
And they really put Mongolia on the map when they arrived there in Ulaanbaatar, and I think he had to eat some sheep's testicles. You know, that was quite a famous. And to me, that was the first time I ever heard about Mongolia or thought about Mongolia. You know, and since then it's become a quite an iconic destination for people to ride motorcycles. So the ride to answer your question, the riding. What I like about it is once you leave Ulaanbaatar, which is the main city, there's maybe like 2 or 3 bigger towns out there, but that's basically it. And then the only place that you can sleep is if you bring your own setup, or you can go to a tourist camp, which is a specific camp that is put up by locals there. But you stay in a yurt or a gear, you know, which means house in Mongolia. So you ride from gear to gear, and the awesomeness is you just let's go that way. Point your bike in that way, and you go. You know, so they've still got this nomadic lifestyle to this day, where the local people in the summer have got their yurt or their gear with sheep and horses and goats and stuff, and they would graze a bit, and so you would drive past, and they'll invite you into your home because that's part of their culture. You know, they've got to do that, and they're very good about it. So it's just such a laid back, but it's very remote. You know, the first time I arrived there in Ulaanbaatar, I thought this literally feels to me the furthest I've ever been away from anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it is remote, but yeah. So I like that place. It's also starting to develop now. You know, you can see it. It's been 8 years since I started going there. I'm actually going back in a month or in 2 months' time to do another tour there. But it's interesting to see the development also creeping up. So the time to go experience that is now. I would say before it becomes too developed.
So how many people were on that trip? I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around like the planning that would go into something like this, especially if the camps are kind of remote or kind of moving. Like, how do you guys, for that trip, how many people were on the trip? What kind of bikes were you on?
So we're on smaller bikes, and I've got a local partner who's now a good friend of mine, you know, in Mongolia that we use. He's got a business where he rents out bikes and 4x4s and things, and we usually rent his bikes. So it's some smaller bikes, 250s up to 450 KTMs or 690s. There's a few 660 Yamaha. So not big bikes.
Okay.
I prefer the smaller ones. He's got some Suzuki DRZ 400s, which is, in my opinion, the perfect bike for that because it's got enough power and good suspension. So to answer your question is we would have a local guy on the bike, the guide. I would be on a bike, and then we'd have a support vehicle with a spare bike, and usually 1 or 2 Land Cruisers or other 4x4s that we would use to carry some luggage and food and water and spares and things. And the other people would then be on bikes as well. And it's actually not such a difficult logistical undertaking because we've got these tourist camps pre-booked for our itinerary. And we just ride from one. So they are moving, but they're moving like once a year, you know. So it's not the guys that are moving are the local people who live literally. They've got their little gear with stuff, and they'd move once the grazing and stuff is done, you know. So so it's not that tricky to do something there because I've got the local connections and but if you start taking your own expedition and going to places that's even more remote, then obviously you've got to carry everything in terms of. And it's a harsh place, you know. We sit, we visit a hot springs just outside of Karkoran on one of our tours, and I was sitting in the springs there one day, and the Russian embassy had a breakaway. I was sitting among these Russians in the And they said, so I asked them about life in Russia and, how does it compare with Ulaanbaatar or Mongolia? And they said, Ulaanbaatar in the winter, which I've never been to, is just crazy. Even those Russians who are known to this, they say
Siberia.
it's too much for them, because what happens is the wind comes in from the steppe, and even though it might not be snowy, but it just blows through the place and drops the temperature. Like, you've got to be a real tough person, I think, to stick it out in the winter there. So that's what ended up happening with the nomadic people, is they've got their yurt. They'll pack that up at the end of the summer season, get all their animals, and go into a town where they put it inside a building, and they've got a little summer house as well. And then they've got to make a plan to feed them, through the winter. So it's a rough, tough place to live, for sure.
What was like the typical meal that you guys would eat on the Mongolia trip for like dinner?
Lots of lamb, lots of dumplings,
Okay.
warm beer.
More beer?
Yeah, because they don't really have, in the beginning, they didn't were really that set up to have a big cooling facility, because they've got no electrical grid to support them. So they've got to rely on generators, which is expensive to run, or solar. And, if there's a big group pulling in, we finish the cold beers very quickly on round number 1, and then you're stuck with warm beers. But they're starting to improve with that now. So, yes, a lot of lamb. There's not a lot of vegetables. You see the odd cucumber or tomato. But lots of rice and lots of dumplings would be on and it's similar. So they'll give us a pack for lunch, and then that'll be the lunch pack as well. Just a different dumpling and, some chicken maybe. So it can fill you up, but it's not a gourmet meal
Sure.
most of the time. But that's not why we go there.
Yeah.
So it's to experience that. But if you want to have good cuisine, then I would recommend coming to Africa. Southern Africa's got some really, you can see I'm struggling with all of that. So, the food is really good in South Africa and Southern Africa. So is the wine.
Nice. So that was the first trip with the company to kind of see if it was a good fit, and it turns out it was a good fit.
Yeah.
So after that, were you hired on? Like, what was your role in the company, and
Right.
like, what did you help plan, or what did you help do immediately after that? Like, what was your first
Yeah,
assignment
so
or your first task?
I started off as a guide, but I mean at this point, there's no formal education on my side. At that time, to do what I was gonna be planning to do. So I started helping him with Rene with guiding on some of the tours. The first one we did in Africa was from Vic Falls to Cape Town. I think I was just driving the sport vehicle at the time. To learn the ropes. So that's normally how we would start. Someone new in the company would be he's got to get a license to drive the sport truck. And then that's the best way to get introduced into how we do things. And that's how I got introduced. So my first one was Victoria Falls to Cape Town. And then, that's 7-8 years ago, we did a few more African ones. And I think I started, my first one that I guided was also Victoria Falls to Cape Town. Then I, coming from a financial background, I was a banker in the life before this. My strength, I think, that I brought to the table was on the financial side. He's a marketing guy, so we dovetail quite good in that sense. So I spent a lot of time since then and to this day, on the costings, and because it's tough to plan for a tour. You've got to have a minimum number to run to make it feasible. We've got to make a margin on it as well, and if people start cancelling short before, but even within their right to cancel, then it could screw things up. So there's a lot of financial vagaries that you've got to plan for, and which I've got some experience in now, and I like doing that. But so I started doing that with him, which I think was something that the company needed as well at the time. One thing that we did was we were thinking of doing a tour from the South of Canada to a little place called Tuktoyaktuk, which is on the Bering Sea. And to this day, it's the furthest north that you can drive with your own vehicle and touch the Arctic Ocean. There's a place called Dead Horse in Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, which is further north, but that's an oil concession. I think BP owns that, so you can only get with a bike about 50 kilometers to that, and you've got to jump on a bus, and then they take it to you. And Tuktoyaktuk is, it sounds cool, right? So difficult to spell. I still can't spell it to this day. But the Canadian government, I think, started in 1950 somewhere to try and connect Tuktoyaktuk with the closest town on the mainland, which is Inuvik. Because prior to this all-weather road being completed in 2017, the only way to get to Taktiaktak in the summer was on the river, on a boat, or you could fly in. And then in the winter, the river, that's Mackenzie River that runs there, freezes over, and you can actually use that as an ice road, drive all the way into the Bering Sea or the Arctic Ocean, and get to the place. So since then, I think this road opened in November 2017. There's an all-weather road from Inuvik now up to Taktiaktak. So we did that as a scope in June or July of 2018. We took our support vehicle and 2 bikes, and we rode all the way up there, which is an amazing.
From southern Canada?
From southern Canada, where we're based, yes.
Up to the Dalton Highway?
So it's actually the Dalton runs up to Dead Horse, right?
Yeah.
But this is the Dempster, just south of Dawson City. So first we went up the Cassiar, up to Watson Lake, and then Whitehorse. And then a couple of 100 miles north of Whitehorse, you turn right onto the Dempster. And that's about 700 kilometers, a couple of ferries until you get to Inuvik. Lots of campers, it's a very popular adventure tourist route, So we were lucky. We were in Dawson City waiting for some weather to pass, and there was a massive rainstorm. The road fell in, and or some trees fell into the road and was closed for a day. But luckily they managed to open it up. And then when we went through there, it was muddy as hell, on the bikes. And if someone tells you he can ride mud, show me someone who says he can ride mud on a bike, and I'll show you a liar.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to ride mud because you don't really know the surface, know what's underneath there. So it's very slippery. So anyway, we had to slip and slide for 700 kilometers up into Inuvik. And then at that time, the road, I'm not sure what it's like now because I haven't been back since, but it was just lots of marbles on the new road. So that was also quite challenging on the bike, to get through all the marbles. We did that in 2 days, up and down from Dawson City, 1,500 Ks on that road because we had the light, so you're north of the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
So it's 24 hours, well, almost, I think, at the time.
The sun kind of kisses the horizon and comes back up.
Yeah, so the significance, I think, of the Arctic Circle is on the summer solstice, that's the furthest south that the sun would go without setting in summer. And in the winter, that's the furthest north or south that it would remain dark. Above that line in summer, it's on the summer solstice, it's 24 hours light. And in the winter, December 21st, it's 24 hours dark. So that, I think, is the significance of the Arctic Circle. So that's quite north. I remember rolling into Inuvik, and we were very hungry after, and nothing's open. Thinking, what the hell's going on here? And then we realized it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But it was as bright as this. So that's quite interesting for someone who's not known to live in places where the sun doesn't set. It's an interesting experience. Yeah, so I started off mostly guiding a little bit on the financial side, and then I bought into the business, bought some shares from him in 2019, became a fully fledged business partner at that time. And now we're trying to become a little bit more corporate. We're working a lot on our internal systems and our booking system. It's been keeping me busy. We're custom building our own booking system, and we've split up the responsibilities. I'm looking after Africa, New Zealand, Japan, and Mongolia, and he's looking after. And during COVID, which was a very tough time for us, we weren't able to trade, but we started off 2 different businesses in addition to the motorcycle touring. The one is a rental company where we rent out bikes in Canada, and we also have an online store where we sell some gear, motorcycle accessories, predominantly a South African brand that we helped develop in the beginning, called Turkana. Cool. Yeah, that's what I keep myself busy with. People always joke, so you just ride a bike, and I say I wish, because that's sort of the smallest part of the business is riding the bike. There's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The logistics, just managing, you're managing people, right? So everyone's got their own needs, everyone's got their own agenda, essentially. Everyone's got their own timelines, and everyone's got their own abilities as well.
Yeah.
So what's the general ability someone needs to join a tour? Like, do they have to be a full-on, I've been riding for 20 years, or like, I just got my license a few weeks ago? Where do they kind of fall in that spectrum?
It's sort of not entirely. I wouldn't really recommend someone just getting his license to come and ride on a tour. I have to say our tours, especially in Africa, on the fully paved itineraries, if you can ride a bike safely on a width at the speed limit on a paved road, you should be fine on our tours. We do have some lodges that's got a tricky driveway to get into, and but usually we can just ferry the bike in for you, if you don't want to ride that. So you've got to be safe and have enough experience to ride within a group and know what it entails to ride within a group. Because if you're 12 bikes in a group, one guy can cause a lot of problems if he's unsafe. So we've got rules that we ride with, and you don't have to have that much experience, but you've got to be a safe rider. And it's difficult to attain that, but we would, if it sounds, I would normally have a chat with someone if I think this person may not have enough experience, and I've got a few questions that I can quickly figure out whether it will fit in. On the gravel ones, you definitely need to have some gravel experience, especially if you want to go 2 up. It's quite dangerous, in my opinion, riding 2 up.
What's 2 up?
A person on the back if you want to take your wife, so it's not dangerous, but you've got to have substantial experience to be safe with that, because it completely changes the ergonomics of the bike, and it makes it a lot more difficult to ride. So we'll interrogate someone if we don't think he's got enough, and I've asked a lot of people to go back and get some more experience before they want to join us on a gravel road. Similarly, the Mongolian one, you need to have some dirt bike experience before you can ride. Knock on wood, so far, I've never had a serious incident. I had to fly someone back from Mongolia, but he was fine. Just lost his confidence after a fall and things. And you are remote, in Mongolia, a helicopter is not going to get you within 5-6 hours. So got to be prepared for those kind of things. So you want to make sure that if you spend a lot of money on a tour, fly halfway around the world, that you've got the ability to get your return on that investment, through maximum enjoyment, and not worrying the whole day about, am I going to make this day or not? That's not the point. Our rides aren't designed to be an enduro expedition. It's a holiday on the back of a bike, and people should enjoy it because there's a lot of nice things to see, and it's certainly not a test to see how tough you can be, or that's not the point, for sure.
So what are some things that people are, maybe either what are some things that people have seen or can expect to see and say the Africa trip, the Japan trip, the New Zealand trip? We kind of covered Mongolia. Or what are some memories you have of like some cool experiences that people have gotten to witness on one of the adventures?
On the African ones, I think the 2 main highlights that immediately jump to mind for me is 2 World Heritage sites. The one is the Okavango Delta, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a place in Botswana that the Kunene and the Okavango River flows into each other, and the Okavango River just disperses itself in the desert in Botswana. So it's called in the Delta area. So if you look at a map, you'll see these fingers of this river sort of just ending out in the. And what happens is it's rain catchful areas in Angola, and then all this water comes through, and then sort of from March to August, it's dry elsewhere. So all the animals, it's the second biggest migration of animals in Africa, comes to this place to drink water. So it teems with animals, all the animals except they've killed out most of the rhinos, unfortunately. I think there's 1 rhino in the whole of the Delta, and I haven't seen him, but we're very lucky usually with our sightings. So what we do is we leave the bikes in a place called Maun, a small town which is sort of the gateway to the Delta, and there's actually been quite a few National Geographic type shows that's being made about bush pilots flying in and out of this place. So we'll hop onto usually it's Grand Caravan, and have a 15-20 minute flight into the heart of the Delta, get off, and we'll get picked up by game viewers, and then immediately we'll be on the lookout for game, and we'll stay overnight. That's sort of the only night that we camp on our tours, but it's wonderful. You stay in this place, you can get eaten any day or any moment by anything. I've actually got a photo somewhere of someone standing with his iPad taking a photo of an elephant in between the tents, and this big guy just came walking through. So you're completely exposed where we stay there.
Big guy?
The big elephant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a massive elephant just decided with his little kid to come walking through the camp. So that's the kind of experiences that I think that everyone think about or would want to experience, and that I would like everyone to experience, because for me, every time it's so amazing. The last time I was there was in October, and we flew in, got off the plane, got into a game viewer, and within 45 minutes I saw 4 of the big 5, because the rhino wasn't there, but I saw 2 lions. I've never seen 2 lions mating, so that's quite a thing to see these two going on about it. And I saw that within 10 minutes getting off the plane. And then just around the corner, I saw a leopard killing a baboon and then pulling that thing into. It's the first time and the last time I probably would see that in my life because, it's just completely lucky. But that's usually the case with the deltas. You'll see all these things and in a short period of time. And also, what a lot of people don't realize is there's lots of things that's called the Big Five. I don't know if you know where the name the Big Five comes from, but
No.
it's a term that was used in the old days as the 5 most difficult animals to hunt on foot. So that would be the lion, leopard, elephant, Cape water buffalo, and the rhino. So that would be the Big Five. But since then, it's become a marketing term, so to tick off the Big Five. Yes,
Got
I
it.
did. And they've got the small 5, the ugly 5, and so they're really coining this. But there's a lot of what I like about going out there is these game rangers that we take out there. Those guys are so knowledgeable about the business. They're all local people that grew up there and they know it a lot. And they tell you the small things, and this is that's part of the ecosystem, but that's not as visible as a freaking leopard pulling up a baboon into a tree, which is spectacular to see, but you don't get to see that often, and the whole ecosystem just doesn't evolve around the Big Five, but around everything, and that's what I like about seeing that. So that'd be the one highlight in Africa. The other one is in the dunes in the Namib Desert, which is the oldest desert in the world. And it's a place called Sossus Vlei. Dead Vlei is a specific place in there, and it's just one of those spectacular places. If you go and Google it, Sossus Vlei or Dead Vlei, you'll see these beautiful dunes, and a few movies have been made there, and it's just a spectacular place to see as well in the desert. Namibia, I think, it's probably my second favorite place of all the places that we traveled to after Mongolia. Because
Namibia.
yeah, and it also happens to be the second least populated country in the world. So that there's probably a trend there.
Yeah.
With people causing trouble and things. And then of course in South Africa, there's some, especially in the Western Cape that we talked about earlier. There's really, really the Cedarburg Mountains, which is where rooibos tea. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, which is a South African thing. It's called Red Bush tea.
No.
And it's herbal tea without caffeine. It's one of our famous exports out of South Africa. You can buy it now, but it's really cool to drink, either as a hot beverage or as an iced tea. I think the marketing of that. So that grows in a specific place in the Cedarburg, only place in the world where they can grow it for some reason, that area is very close to my heart because I spent a lot of time there, while I was living in Cape Town, and it's just spectacular. Yeah, so that probably would be the two things, apart from Cape Town and Table Mountain, which is so iconic. It's like the Golden Gate Bridge. You probably don't even see it more every day because you're close to that, right? So
yeah, I used to live right.
Yeah. So
I used to drive it over to work almost every day. So.
Okay, well there you go. So
Yeah.
the Golden Gate Bridge to you is probably what Table Mountain is to me.
Yeah.
The first time I saw the Golden Gate, I just look at this. I can't believe I'm here. People go through the same thing when they see Table Mountain.
Every day there's thousands of people that are
Yes,
saying the same
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
So there's that, and there's just we can talk for hours about because I'm so biased about Southern Africa. And it's such an awesome place. But it's really cool. And of course, the wine out there is great. California's got great wines. Make no mistake. I'm just illiterate when it comes to California wines because I didn't grow up here. But
Yeah.
I know a little bit more about what would be a good value wine in South Africa and some really nice wine estates to go to. So the food is good.
It's amazing. That sounds so fun. So
Yeah,
so exciting.
Very privileged and fortunate, I think, to be able to do this.
Yeah.
It's a tough job and it's a very difficult business to be in. It's very competitive. But I think we talked about earlier about what motivates you, and if you want to become rich, don't come and do this job. But it's really fulfilling, and I think the biggest thing for me, apart from the amazing places that we get to see and experience, is striking up those new relationships with people. Because our longest tour is 44 days. And that can be a real challenge if you've got difficult people on there. But so far, my experience, the type of person that can afford it, that's got the time, that's got the sense of adventure to actually do that, is a really special kind of person.
Yes.
And in all instances, all the people that I've been on tour for such a long time became best friends with, because it's tough. Things break down, and I think the biggest fulfillment for me from this job is meeting all these amazing people out there. Really, to this day. Came back from Montana 2 weeks ago with a guy that was, I think, on one of the 44-day tours. Wonderful guy, became good friends, and that's, money can't buy stuff like that, right? yeah, very, very fortunate to be able to do this.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to check out more about it. What was the motivation for trying to get the tours going in Japan? And where is, if you do you have anything else on your radar that you want to try to have an adventure through any other countries?
Right. So Japan, the way Rene initially started, decide on the next adventure area that he wanted to write through was when he did his round the world. And but it's such a good read. He's a really good writer. The University of Gravel Roads is the name of his book. And,
Yeah, we'll link to that below
Sure.
in the description so you guys can check it out.
On that trip of his, Mongolia, we thought was a special place. That was before it became famous in the long way around. Patagonia, which he went through in South America, was another spectacular place. So that's why we went there. Canada, obviously, that's where he's from. Africa is where he and his wife is from. So it's another special place. So New Zealand and Japan, we've got all these riders that come riding with us, and they want to do some more stuff with us, and we decided, well, let's check out new destinations that we want to go to.
Yep.
Because Renee and I both love places to travel to, and we
Yeah.
so we
Japan, New
decided
Zealand.
Japan, New Zealand. He wanted to go to New Zealand. I've never been there, and we were usually what happens is we would go into an industry, like a trade show, or meet some other people, and then strike up relationships through that. And that's what happened with New Zealand. We got a contact there, and well, let's come ride, and then we'll take you to Africa, etc., etc. So that's how we got into New Zealand. Beautiful place as well. They can't play rugby because they. I'm sure if there's a Kiwi listening here, you'll probably disagree with me, but
Oh, they can't. They don't have the skills to play.
I don't know if they've ever won the World Cup. It's such a long time ago that happened to them. Because we've won the last two, and
Was it the All Blacks?
The All Blacks, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. They're probably still the
Yeah, we had a few
most-
Kiwi listeners, so
right.
no offense.
Yeah, no offense. I love them to bits, and they're such good competitors on the rugby field. But anyway, New Zealand's an amazing place. It's again very sparsely populated. I think there's 5 million people in the country. Majority of them live up in Auckland. So the South Island, which jokingly is referred to as the mainland,
Oh,
is also not that populated, but the people are so friendly, and still that old school sense of community that you get there. Riding, it's all small roads but lots of twisty, so it's paved road, easy to ride, but yet you've got to be comfortable in in twisty environment. New Zealand is just it's a traveler's haven. Whether you're on a bike or in a camper, they're very well set up with small little campers that you can rent there. That I think your guys would appreciate is these little vans that go there. So if you haven't been to New Zealand, man, you've got to make sure you get out there. It's I don't know much about Australia, but I think it's quite similar. Although it's a lot not quite similar, but again, it's a similar in the sense that it's a good adventure destination. The Aussies obviously are different to the Kiwis. So that's how we ended up in New Zealand, and it's been a very successful tour for us because it's such a popular place to go to. And again, Japan, it has always been number one on my travel list to go to, just to go and experience, because I've traveled quite a bit, and I've always wanted to go to Japan. And then we made a contact through the industry again with a company there that does a similar thing to us, and we've teamed up with them to provide a unique tour. So I was there in April for the first tour, and like I said, it blew my mind away. Not just from a riding perspective, because it's very similar to Hawaii where it's up and down. So I think the small islands of Japan has got 10,500 tunnels in the whole road network.
Wow.
To give you an idea, the size of the US, I think when I Googled it, was like 500 tunnels in the whole of the US. Japan can fit in probably, if you bunch it up, in Southern California in terms of size. So you can just imagine how hilly the place is. So while you're riding, you're either going up on little twisty paths and down on the other side, or through a tunnel, and it's just spectacularly beautiful. So from a riding perspective, Japan is amazing. If you like Japanese food, you know what to expect. Sushi is really good value there, and I love Japanese food. It's very cool. The people are probably the highest, most civilized society, in my opinion, in the world. It's the cleanest country I've ever been to. You can't find a trash can. You've got to hand in your trash at the hotel in the evening or something. It's mind-blowing. And then, the cultural difference there is really remarkable to see how we visit quite a lot of castles, some swordsmiths that show you how they make these katanas, that's millions of dollars worth. And also I think quite a striking thing for me was we stopped in Hiroshima, visited the Peace Park there and the A-bomb there. And it's difficult to imagine how different the world must have been 80 years ago when the Second World War ended. And obviously the context then was completely different, but it's hard to fathom today that one nation would drop a bomb on another nation. I'm not going to go into the merits of that, but it's just a interesting thing to see, and it certainly was an emotional time for me to be there. Right in the epicenter of where this happened, and again, I'm not expressing an opinion or anything, but it's for that reason I think Japan really ticked a lot of boxes for me. The bullet train, the Shinkansen, that thing. I've got a speedometer on my phone, and once when we were pulling out of the station, we reached 100 kilometers, 60 miles before we were out of the station, and that thing is just as quiet as anything, and it takes 3 hours, to go from the south to Tokyo or wherever. It's such a fun thing to ride, and no, I can't wait to get back there. Really, it's I wish everyone in this world can see how the Japanese live. And
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I spent
have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there
Right.
only for about 5 days.
Okay.
But it was, I've always wanted to go. I took Japanese in college.
Right.
I could speak a little Japanese.
cool.
And I went to Kamakura, which is used to be the capital of Japan. It's where the samurai was born.
Right.
And now it's the surfing and skateboarding
Okay.
capital of Japan.
Wow.
So you have this crazy counter juxtaposition of people riding to the beach with surfboards on their bicycles, and then right behind them is a bunch of monks going to pray, all dressed up in their monk
Jeez.
attire. And it's just an incredible juxtaposition of Western meets old school Japan.
Yeah.
Big Buddha statue, lots of temples that have been around for
Yeah.
thousands of years,
Yes.
and then surf shops along the coast. So
Yeah, the modern day, which of course Japan is so technologically advanced
Mhm.
versus all this rich history, that it's I'm still wrapping my mind around this place, So
yeah,
anyway, so that's how we got into Japan, and the next place that we've got in our mind, which we've been tinkering quite a bit, was to get close to the Andes. There's
Andes.
not the Andes, sorry, the Himalayas.
Oh wow.
And Everest, to maybe do something up to base camp. There's a lot of people that do it already, but it's also a place both on mine and Renee's travel list that we want to get to, and that's a cool place to ride. So
Like Nepal and
Nepal, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe I've always wanted to go to Sikkim, which is a little Sikkim. It's a little principality there, or principality, how you pronounce it. So yeah, there's nothing on the books yet. And then I've got a tour in Southern Africa, and maybe a dirt bike tour. That's going to be a rough dirt bike tour that I want to do. All short, light bikes for people that can really ride. Not
Wow.
that I can ride, but it's going to be a little bit more of an adventure.
Got it.
So that's what we've got on the books for now.
Okay. Super exciting stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
If people want to learn more, what's the best way to follow along on the adventures and to get more information about the company and just, the day-to-day of what you guys are up to with your tours?
So we're really bad with social media, but we do have an Instagram channel, and we try and post some stuff there. I think it's just Renedian. Just Google Renedian.
Sure. Yeah, we'll link it below
Yeah.
as well. If you're
And,
listening, it'll be in the notes. And then if you're watching on YouTube, just check out below.
Yeah, so we've got a YouTube channel which needs some updating as well. There's kind of a few cool videos on there. And of course our website, Renedian, RENEDIN.com.
Okay.
It's the
Perfect.
easiest way.
Awesome, Pete. Well, thanks so much for joining
Thank you so
me.
much. Yeah.
Really good conversation about
Absolutely.
traveling through all these different countries on motorcycles. And can't wait to check out more and hear more adventures in the coming years. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciated chatting with you in this amazing place. And
Yeah.
it's been really an honor to be on your podcast.
Oh,
Thanks
my
a lot,
pleasure.
Fred.
All right.
Take care, man.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.